Hi everybody, hope you're all okay and are ready for our English lesson. You will need a copy of your Beast of Olympus book, which you should have collected on Monday, a pencil and your Wonder Book or your jotter. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to read chapter 1, The Godfather. So if you turn to chapter 1, we can read it together. Okay, if I stop sharing this a minute, then you get me on full screen. Okay, so chapter 1, The Godfather. Demon was chatting to the chickens about eggs when his dad arrived. He'd never met his dad before, but he knew it was him all right. His dad had thick, hairy, goatee legs, big curly horns, yellow eyes with black slitty pupils, no clothes to speak of, and a set of silver reed pipes. Demon's dad was a god. Fox God, Fox God, Fox God, run, run, run! The chickens scattered across the yard, gabbling and squawking in terror. Demon knelt in the dirt and bowed his head. He wasn't too sure if that's what you did with Dad, but it was certainly what you did with a god, especially if that god was Pan, ruler of the forest and all the wild creatures. A god who could call up a pack of big bears that would rip you to bits in an instant. Pandemonious, my boy, said his dad. Pan's voice was like a mossy bark on ancient trees. It was deep and velvety with a hint of crumbly roughness edges. Even though it was Demon's real name, no one had ever called him Pandemonious. Even the mountain wolves called him Demon, and they tended to be rather formal in their speech. Demon was about to tell his dad how silly his full name sounded when he felt a pair of huge hands under his armpits. He was lifted up into a god hug and smelled of pungent green things, goatee musk and old stale blood. Good to meet you at last, my son. Come on, let's go and find your mother, Caris, and get your things together. Haven't seen her in far too long, not since you arrived in the world, in fact. By Zeus's beard, how time flies. About 2 minutes later, a confused demon found himself in the corner of a hut he shared with his mother. He had packed his few possessions into a bundle, and he could see his dad whispering in his mum's ear. When she'd seen Demon and his father walk in together, she dropped her best herb chopping knife on the hard dirt floor. It had nearly cut off her big toe. Now she kept saying, but, in a high-pitched voice. She sounded like Demon's little black lamb Barley when he wanted milk. She might as well have kept quiet. Pan stomped over her butts like a charging centaur. Pandemonious is coming with me, he said. And that's final. You don't want to offend the gods by refusing to let him go, do you? There was nothing much Demon's mum could say to that, really. Mortals who offended gods usually ended up as little piles of scorched ash or trees or rocks. In the end, Pan dragged Demon forcibly out of the door with nothing more than a quick goodbye kiss and a hug from his mum. A weeping Caris was left behind, waving a damp hanky. Demon felt like crying too. His mum was his whole family. He felt a fat, bumpy lump swelling bigger in his throat until he nearly couldn't breathe. He didn't dare ask where he was being taken or what for. Even if he had dared, he didn't know what to call his father anyway. Your godness, your holiness, your dadness. Until a few minutes ago, he'd been an ordinary 11-year-old boy living with his mum near an ordinary village in the middle of Arcadia. He spent his days looking after the goats and sheep and chickens and hoeing the vegetables. Admittedly, the fact that he could talk to animals was out of ordinary, but everyone around his home knew he was the child of a god, and things like that happened to half-god kids. No one took much notice, really, except for the local farmers calling him when their beasts were sick. Demon could ask the animals what was wrong, and his mum could say the herbs to prescribe for them. All the farmers got used to hearing Demon tell what their sheep was saying, my belly hurts, instead of just, ah. Now he was being wrenched away suddenly from everything he knew by his father he didn't even know how to talk to. When he got to the edge of the forest, Pan stopped. Iris, he bellowed. Express for 2, Olympus bound. Demon felt his fat, bumpy throat lump get bigger still. Olympus? Why was it being taken up to Mount Olympus? Wasn't that the huge mountain where all the gods lived in the shiny palace in the sky? What were they going to do to him? A horrid thought hit his brain like a speeding arrow. He couldn't remember if the gods still liked human sacrifices or not. Perhaps that was what he was wanted for. Only, why had he packed all of his stuff if they were going to kill him? It wasn't like Zeus was going to want his spare cloak, or was it? Just then, right in front of his eyes, a rainbow burst from the sky and landed at their feet. Hop on, son, said Pan. Hold tight to me. The Iris Express can seem a bit fast if you're not used to it. Demon did as he was told, squeezed his eyes shut and hung on to Pan's big hairy waist. He felt his stomach drop away behind him. There was a loud whooshing sound and a strong smell of flowers. Wild roses, he thought, sniffing cautiously. He opened one eye a crack and looked down. He wished he hadn't. He was standing on a see-through wisp of rainbow that was whizzing up and arching into the sky. The earth was getting smaller and smaller behind him. The whole of Greece was laid out below like a wiggly green and amber hand in the dark purple pool of the sea. He was just about to scream with terror when there was another whoosh and a thump. They burst through a misty barrier and landed. Demon felt the shock of it vibrate through his soles of his feet. He lost his grip on his dad and felt a bump on his bottom. Here we are, said Pan, picking Demon up and dusting him off. He strode down off the rainbow towards some shining white temples. Everything was enormous and looked very clean on Olympus, although Demon could smell an odd and rather nasty sort of pooey stench in the air. There were all kinds of nymphs and cherubs flitting about everywhere among gigantic multicoloured blooms and trees that had bunches of silvery golden fruit hanging from them. Demon had to run to keep up with Pan. His bundle of clothes banged against his back. Suddenly, he felt really angry. How dare his dad just turn up and kidnap him like this without telling him anything? It wasn't fair. If he was going to be sizzled and frizzled and sacrificed, he wanted to know why. In his fury, he totally forgot about being frightened of the gods. Before he could stop himself, Demon began to shout at his dad's back. Hey, he yelled. Hey, you, stop! Pan stopped. He turned around very slowly, his eyes flashing green fire. The nymphs and cherubs blinked out of sight rather abruptly. Are you yelling, hey, you, at me, boy? His dad asked very quietly. Demon gulped a bit, but he wasn't going to back down. He nodded. His mum always said his worst fault was that he never knew when to be polite and keep his mouth shut in front of his elders and betters. But this time, he just didn't care. His dad had ignored him for his whole life and ripped him away from everything and everyone he knew and loved, and hadn't even said please. It wasn't right, and Demon was going to find out why Demon was going to find out why he was here if it killed him, which it probably would, in about 3 seconds' time. Yes, sir, your godness Pandad, I want to know what you're going to do to me. Demon didn't want his voice to stammer and stumble, but it seemed to have a mind of its own. He cleared his throat and tried again. If I'm going to be a sacrifice to the gods, I think you should let me say goodbye to my mum properly first. She's going to be really upset with you when I'm dead. Pan looked at him. His green fire in his eyes died, and his mouth opened in a great windy gust of laughter and nearly knocked Demon backwards. Sacrifice to the gods? Is that what you thought you were here for? My own son? Did you hear that, nymphs? A sacrifice? Oh, that's a good one. He laughed some more, and the nymphs and cherubs flipped into view again, looking relieved. Pan scratched his curly horn and ran a hand through his wild hair. Bit of bark, twigs, and dead leaves fell out in a shower. By Zeus's toenails! I told your dear mother, but I forgot I hadn't told you. Come on, boy, follow me, quick as you like. I think it's high time I took you to see the stables of the gods. Okay, so that is chapter 1. We'll find out what else happens. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my slides. So let's have a look at our what. So our what today is to retrieve information from a text. How? We're going to do it by reading and researching together. So we're going to be obviously using the book, reading parts in there, so that we can find out more about the main characters. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a little recap of the story that we read. So chapter 1, what happened? Okay, so Demon lives with his mom. He is a half god, which means that he's half human and he's half god. Because he is a half god, he has supernatural powers, and those supernatural powers mean that he can talk to animals. So he's been working with farmers that were living near him to help them with their animals then when they weren't feeling themselves. His dad arrived, he'd never met his dad before, and takes him back to Mount Olympus. They travel on a rainbow, and Demon thinks that he's going to be a sacrifice to the gods, but his dad has other plans for him. Okay, so that's what's happened in chapter 1. Our why was so that we can find out more about the main characters, okay? So we were retrieving information, and if we do a little bit of a rewind to our retrieval magnifier, the purple one, we know that that is when we retrieve and we take the information from the text. So these are the questions that we will use to find out more information. So who was Demon talking to when his dad arrived? Draw a picture of what you think his dad looks like. I know there is a picture in the book, but that first part gives you a really good description. So it'd be really nice to see if you can follow that description and create that character from that description. What is Demon's real name? What is Demon's dad, Pan, god of? What is Demon's supernatural power? Where did Demon's dad take him? How did they travel? And why is Demon angry with his dad? So they're the questions that we are going to be using. So obviously that we will need to retrieve the information. So a little bit thinking back to last half term when we were looking at the magnifiers on our Monday reading lesson, we know that the retrieval finder is the purple magnifier. And we know that with the retrieval finder, all the information is in the text. We're not asking you to use what you think and use the clues. We are asking you to pick out all that information. And the way that we are going to do it, going back to our master's magnifiers, are those 4 steps to solve any question. Those steps are read it, zap it, scan it, and crack it. Okay, so let's have a look. I'm going to help you. I'm going to do my turn with question 1. So question 1 is, who was Demon chatting to when his dad arrived? So reading the question, okay, we've read the text already. We're going to read the question. We're going to zap that question, okay, to find that key information. So the key information in this one is Demon chatting, dad, and arrived. So we know that when we're looking in back, so we're scanning the book, the text, that they are the words that we are going to look for. Okay, we're just scanning it at this point. So then we're going to scan through the book to find that information. And that first part says Demon was chatting to the chickens about eggs when his dad arrived. So we can crack it. We've solved that question. We've cracked it because we have the answer. Okay. What I would like you to do is use it. Now it's your turn to use that retrieval finder in order to answer all those questions. Okay, so you just bear with me a minute. I am going to share another screen for you. And I'm going to get my book, and we are going to write the date and together. So if we can just go to my new screen. Okay, we are going to share a different screen. Here it is. Okay, so I have my book. Oh, I have my book from yesterday, and I have got work that I did yesterday, so I'm going to turn to the next clean page, and I am going to write the date. So it is Wednesday, the 24th. Okay, I'm going to leave a line, and I'm going to write number 1 in the margin, and then I am going to write the answer to number 1. So I know that Demon was chatting to the chickens. Okay, then I'm going to leave a line. I'm going to write number 2, and number 2 was for you to draw a picture of what you think his dad looks like. Okay, so in your book, you are going to, I'm going to go back to this one. In your book, you are going to turn to that first page, okay, where it has the description of his dad, and you are going to draw a picture. So you would draw thick, hairy, goatee legs, big curly horns, yellow eyes with black slitty pupils, no clothes to speak of, and a set of silver reed pipes. Okay, once you've done that in your space, you would then write number 3 in the margin, and then write what Demon's real name is. Okay, you would do that with all of those so that they will be in your book all together. So all of our learning for English is in our book together. Okay, so look forward to seeing those. So please send them through to us on Dojo when you have done them. We look forward to seeing these and seeing that you are finding out more information about those characters, which hopefully will support your prediction that you did yesterday. Okay, year 3. See you tomorrow. Bye.